Hi everyone, the book I'm reviewing today is called Women Who Run with the Wolves, Contacting the Power of the Wild Woman by Clarissa Pinkola Estes. It is a thick book and a long read. It took me a lot of time as well. A very deep book. It's not only for females. Um, there's a lot of learning in here. I think everyone should read this book. And as Maya Angelou says, everyone who can read should read this book. It really is a beautiful read. Goes into various different aspects. I would say it's like a reawakening, quite intensive. It does take some time to get through, but very insightful. If you've read the book, let me know what you thought. And I was fascinated about Women Who Run with the Wolves, and she explains why wolves. Healthy wolves and healthy women share certain psychic characteristics: keen sensing, playful spirit, and a heightened capacity for devotion. Wolves and women are relational by nature, inquiring, possessed of great endurance and strength. They are deeply intuitive, intensely concerned with their young, their mates, and their pack. They are experienced in adapting to constantly changing circumstances. They are fiercely stalwart and brave. This is from a chapter called The How Resurrection of the Wild Woman. The one who creates from that which has died is always a double-sided archetype. The creation mother is always also the death mother, and vice versa. Because of this dual nature or double tasking, the great work before us is to learn to understand what around and about us and what within us must live and what must die. Our work is to apprehend the timing of both, to allow what must die to die and what must live to live. And there's quite a few chapters where she talks about this, and I found it quite deep and profound. And when you learn to sit with this a bit, you do realize that something has to die for something new to be born. This is from a chapter called Nosing Out the Facts. Experiencing directly one's own shadow nature, particularly the exclusionary, jealous, and exploitative aspects of self, the stepmother and stepsisters, acknowledging these unequivocally, making the best relationship one can with the worst parts of oneself, letting the pressure build between who one is taught to be and who one really is. Ultimately, working towards letting the old self die and the new intuitive self be born. The stepmother and stepsisters represent the undeveloped but provocatively cruel elements of the psyche. They are shadow elements, meaning aspects of oneself which are considered by the ego to be undesirable or not useful and are therefore relegated to the dark. On one hand, shadow material can be quite positive, for often a woman's gifts are pushed into the dark, hidden there and waiting to be discovered. On the other hand, negative shadow material, that which busily kills off or detains all new life, can be turned to one's use, as we shall see. When it erupts and we finally identify its aspects and sources, we are all made the stronger and wiser. In this stage of initiation, a woman is harassed by the petty demands of her psyche, which exhort her to comply with whatever anyone wishes. Compliance causes a shocking realization that must be registered by all women. That is, to be ourselves causes us to be exiled by many others, and yet to comply with what others want causes us to be exiled from ourselves. It is a tormenting tension and it must be borne, but the choice is clear. However, to see into or through something requires initiation and also the strength to stand upon what one sees. For instance, women who are raised in families that are not accepting of their gifts often set off on tremendously big quests over and over, and they do not know why. They feel they must have 3 PhDs, or that they have to hang upside down from Mount Everest, or that they must execute all manner of dangerous, time consuming, and money eating endeavors to try to prove to their families that they have worth. Now, will you accept me? No? Okay, watch this. The step-family ganglia, of course, belongs to us by whichever means we receive it, and it is our work to deal with it in an empowered manner. However, we can see that for the deep work to continue, trying to prove one's worth to the chorus of jealous hags is pointless, and as we shall see, in fact, impedes the initiation. The way to maintain one's connection to the wild is to ask yourself, what is it that you want? This is the sorting of the seed from the dirt. One of the most important discriminations we can make in this matter is the difference between the things that beckon to us and the things that call from our souls. And these are part of the deep moments I was talking about. Do we answer to everything that beckons us? Do we even know what we want and what our soul calls out for? Perhaps recognizing intuition is the easier of the asks, but holding it in consciousness and letting live what can live and letting die what must die is by far the most strenuous yet so satisfying aim. Nature does not ask permission. To let things die is the theme at the end of the tale. Vasilisa has learned well. Does she collapse into a fit of high-pitched shrieking as the skulls burn into the malicious ones? No. What must die, dies. For most women, to let die is not against their natures, it is only against their training. This can be reversed. We all know in Los Ovarios, when it is time for life, when it is time for death. We might try to fool ourselves for various reasons, but we know. This is from a chapter called Hunting When the Heart is a Lonely Hunter. What must I give more death to today in order to generate more life? What do I know should die, but am hesitant to allow to do so? What must die in me in order for me to love? What not beauty do I fear? Of what use is the power of the not beautiful to me today? What should die today? What should live? What life am I afraid to give birth to? If not now, when? I find this a great prompt to journal. I really do believe in journaling and helping to understand and help us understand a lot. And this paragraph I find is a great prompt to journal. To return to an alert innocence is not so much an effort, like moving a pile of bricks from here to there, as it is standing still long enough to let the spirit find you. It is said that all that you are seeking is also seeking you. That if you lie still, sit still, it will find you. It has been waiting for you a long time. Once it is here, don't move away. Rest and see what happens next. How many of us can actually sit still? Through their bodies, women live very close to the life nature. When women are in their right instinctual minds, their ideas and impulses to love, to create, to believe, to desire are born, have their time, fade and die, and are reborn again. Sometimes the one who is running from the life-death, life-nature insists of thinking of love as boon only. Yet love in its fullest form is a series of deaths and rebirths. We let go of one phase, one aspect of love, and enter another. Passion dies and is brought back. Pain is chased away and surfaces another time. To love means to embrace and at the same time to withstand many, many endings and many, many beginnings, all in the same relationship. She shows him that creation is a series of births and deaths. She teaches that protectionism creates nothing, selfishness creates nothing, holding on and screaming effects nothing. Only letting go, giving heart, the great drum, the great instrument of the wild nature, only this creates. This is from a chapter called Joyous Body, the Wild Flesh. Butterfly Woman needs the erroneous idea that transformation is only for the tortured, the saintly, or only for the fabulously strong. The self need not carry mountains to transform. A little is enough. A little goes a long way. A little changes much. The fertilizing force replaces the moving of mountains. And that's it. We're all waiting for a lot to be able to change when a little is more than enough. We only need a little to start. This is from a chapter called Self-Preservation. At bottom is the best soil to sow and grow something new again. In that sense, hitting bottom, while extremely painful, is also the sowing ground. Though fairy tales end after 10 pages, our lives do not. We are multi-volume sets. In our lives, even though one episode amounts to a crash and burn, there is always another episode awaiting us and then another. There are always more opportunities to get it right, to fashion our lives in the ways we deserve to have them. Don't waste your time hating a failure. Failure is a greater teacher than success. Listen, learn, go on. And this was quite an impactful paragraph because time and time again we look at failure as, yes, it's painful and it hurts, but it's a much greater teacher than success, and that's where we learn. How many of us actually listen to our failures, learn from it, and then go on? And if we do, there's so much more we could achieve. If we remove ourselves from our real and passionate lives and enter the gilded carriage of the dry old woman, in effect we adopt the persona and ambitions of the brittle old perfectionist. Then, like all captured creatures, we fall into a sadness that leads to an obsessive yearning, often characterized in my practice as the relentless with no name. Thereafter, we are at risk of seizing the first thing that promises to make us feel alive again. It is important to keep our eyes open and to carefully weigh offers of an easier existence, a trouble-free path, especially if, in exchange, we are asked to surrender our personal creative joy to a cremating fire rather than enkindling one of our own making. Do you feel alive? Do you know what makes us feel alive? And do we know how to pursue it? Or, like how she describes in this chapter, are we entering the gilded carriage through the promise of an easier existence? We find that by opening the door to the shadow realm a little and letting out various elements, a few at a time, relating to them, finding use for them, negotiating, we can reduce being surprised by shadow sneak attacks and unexpected explosions. These discarded, devalued, and unacceptable aspects of soul and self do not just lie there in the dark, but rather conspire about how and when they shall make a break for freedom. They burble down there in the unconscious, they seethe, they boil, till one day, no matter how well the lid over them is sealed, they explode outward and upward in an unchanneled torrent, and with the will of their own. This is from a chapter called Homing, Returning to Oneself. The development of knowing begins with suffering. This progresses from first being unaware, then triggered in one way or another, and then finding one's way to power again, and more so to depth. Every creature on earth returns to home. It is ironic that we have made wildlife refuges for ibis, pelican, egret, wolf, crane, deer, mouse, moose and bear, but not for ourselves in the places where we live day after day. We understand that the loss of habitat is the most disastrous event that can occur to a free creature. We fervently point out how other creatures' natural territories have become surrounded by cities, ranches, highways, noise, and other dissonance, as though we are not surrounded by the same, as though we are not affected also. We know that for creatures to live on, they must at least from time to time have a home place, a place where they feel both protected and free. We traditionally compensate for loss of a more serene habitat by taking a vacation or a holiday, which is supposed to be giving off pleasure to oneself, except a vacation is often anything but. And all this is very good, but for the soul self psyche, vacation is not the same as refuge. Time out or time off is not the same as returning home. Calmness is not the same as solitude. It is not exactly the rightness of a person or thing or its wrongness that causes the theft of our soul skins. It is the cost of these things to us. It is what it costs us in time, energy, observation, attention, hovering, prompting, instructing, teaching, and training. And I'll leave that. There's so many other pearls of wisdom, so do get yourself a copy. It's a long read, but it's definitely worth it.